You're listening to Inside Public Procurement by Bonfire, a show celebrating the unique stories and heroic efforts of those on the front lines of public procurement. Each episode, we bring you the latest trends, tips, and real stories from procurement trailblazers like you, who work tirelessly to bring positive impact to the agencies and communities you serve. Together, let's elevate the field of public procurement to new heights. Now, pull up a chair and let's gather around the bonfire. Our show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to the Inside Public Procurement podcast. My name is Tuong and I am a client support agent as well as a podcast producer at Bonfire, an e-procurement solution used by over 500 public agencies in North America. I'm very excited because I'm joined today by Sandra Nelson, who is the Director of Strategic Procurement at Carleton University and the current chair of the Ontario University Professional Procurement Management Association. OUPPMA. That's a really, it's the full title for that. One. It's a lot. But Sandra has been with Carleton's administration for over 20 years in a variety of leadership roles and has dedicated the last 6 years to transforming the procurement services portfolio. For the last 3 years as chair of OUPPMA, she has stewarded the association through strategic transformation, realignment, and rebranding in order to emphasize the role of the association and its members in the public procurement landscape. She is also a PhD candidate in management and change at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton and is a chartered professional accountant in Ontario. Her areas of research interest include organizational change, organizational culture, employee well-being, and work-life balance. The many lessons learned throughout her academic and professional career have led her to advocate for a people-focused approach to change with an emphasis on understanding value, purpose, and impact throughout any initiative. Hello, Sandra. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, Tuong. Thank you for having me. That was a long introduction.
I love it. You have such, like I said before we started the recording, you have such a storied career here. And the most exciting thing that sticks out to me immediately when we first talked is that you're from Carleton University, which is the university I graduated from. I'm a former Raven. Kaka. We never said that back in Carleton.
No, we don't. I don't think we say that.
We don't say that. What do we say? Go Ravens, go? I'm pretty sure that's it.
Go Ravens, go. Yeah.
Sandra, how are you doing here today? You know, it's been a journey to get you on the podcast, but I'm finally so excited to have you here.
I am excited too. Yes, we've had many trials and tribulations. I think for everybody, right? These past couple of years are just so constantly changing, evolving. I feel like you're under rapid fire all the time, particularly in the procurement sector, of course. I think many people know that, right? There's a lot going on. And so thank you for being patient with me also, because just when you think you're ready to do this, then a million things hit you. And it was a close call this morning, even.
I know. For those of you who don't know, Sandra and I have been trying to schedule this talk for what seems like, let's say, 20 years. Let's just go.
Yeah, it feels like it. At least.
Yeah. Sandra, before we get into the meat of the discussion today, because we have a lot to talk about, I'm wondering, I went to Carleton. I grew up in Ottawa. I looked at the weather this morning and I'm like, I'm so glad I don't live in the capital anymore. Not because I don't love it. I love the capital city. There's a lot going on in it. Carleton's great, all this other stuff, but I do not miss the cold. And I'm wondering, how are you doing with all that these days, the winter weather?
It is pretty brisk today, but it comes with the territory, right? Like, I don't know that I ever consciously chose to live in one of the coldest cities in the world, but it's cold today. It's been a crazy week of, my friend called it Snowmageddon. I think most of us got hit with that. Only first backed the car out yesterday, so it took a little bit to get the car out of its mountain of snow. But, also working from home still. I am working from home and have been now for, almost 2 years. It's definitely nice. I don't have to go out and warm up the car in the morning. So it's a little easier to live in Ottawa right now.
Right. If you don't plan on leaving anywhere.
Yeah. If you don't leave. But I mean, it's cold. It's very cold.
So my question to you, and I know people are like, you're talking about the weather at the top of the show. What a topic. But People, if you don't know, Ottawa's a very cold, very cold city in the winter.
Yeah,
it's hard not to talk about it.
It is hard not to. And even your closest friends and people I see every day, it's automatically the first thing you talk about. And then, of course, if you don't know Ottawa and you're not from Ottawa, you also know in the summer it's the same thing, because the swing from one end to the other, because we're also one of the most hot and humid places, it's you can't avoid it. And yeah, it seems trivial and kind of ridiculous, but
it's a conversation starter. I get it. It's the Ottawa in me to bring that up anyways, but yes. You're right. It is very hot in the summer. My question to you was, what are the number one winter activities you like to do in the capital? Or is it just stay home and stay away from this?
Stay inside. That's my number one thing. No, I mean, over the years, so I didn't grow up in Ottawa, so we were different. You are from here and left, and I'm not from here, and came here to go to Carleton actually many years ago. And over the years, there's certainly, of course, Winterlude, and I don't know what Winterlude looks like this year, but Winterlude is, of course, the number one thing to do in Ottawa in the winter. But I have to be honest, I haven't participated in Winterlude probably in a number of years. But
what is Winterlude for the people at home who don't know what that is?
So Winterlude, I mean, honestly, it is the celebration of winter in the national capital. It is a collection of activities that obviously are mostly focused on outside. So if you're not an outdoor person, you probably don't participate in Winterlude. But of course, the canal running through Ottawa, you've got, I think it was 7 kilometers of skating rink. And I did hear that for the first time in a long time, the entire rink opened earlier this week, or like the entire canal, which is rare. You have those winters where it's a puddle because it gets randomly hot in the middle of winter and you don't have a skating rink, but that's the feature. But there's usually ice carving competitions and different venues you want to visit to go tobogganing or sliding, or different cultural exhibits. And of course, beaver tail huts dotted throughout the city, which of course you have to, again, if you're not from Ottawa, it's not a real beaver tail.
Yes, I had to clarify that to many people. They're like, "What, you did what to a beaver?" No. It's just it's just breaded, deep fried stuff. You're good. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of myths about Canadians, but no, the beaver tail hut is not actually eating beaver tails, but it's great dough pastry covered in sugar or drizzled in hazelnut chocolate.
Yum.
Lovely, yummy. So that's always a hit,
Terrible for you, but so good.
But so good.
Yeah. I definitely miss Winterlude, but you're right. Even if I were to live in Ottawa now, I probably wouldn't go because I don't want to deal with that weather. But let's stop talking about the weather. We've been
Sounds good.
You know what? We have other things to talk about. I want to talk about you, Sandra. You have such an interesting career. You're such an interesting person, and we can tell that by just the biography alone. But I want to talk about your journey into procurement. Do you want to expand on that?
Sure. Thank you for that. That's very kind and generous description of me. I appreciate it. My journey into procurement, well, it's definitely not straightforward. And many of my peers, it's also not very straightforward. And we often kind of talk about procurement as at least in the university sector, as a job you sort of fall into. And certainly that's what my history is. So as you said in the introduction, I've been at Carleton for well over 20 years, especially if you include my undergrad, because that is why I did make the journey to Ottawa. And many of those years I was in finance related roles, working in financial services. So the first 15 years of my career were probably focused mostly on financial systems. So that's really where my background is. And on a fateful day so many years ago, one of my colleagues asked me about e-procurement systems. Just like, do you know anything about this e-procurement system that all the other universities are talking about? And I maybe mistakenly said, well, yes, I do. And that sort of started my path actually into procurement. So I came at procurement from a systems perspective, an e-procurement platform perspective, and implemented the e-procurement system for the university, for Carleton. And that was probably a 1 to 2 year project to do that. And about partway through that project, my second boss at the time said, well, I'm looking for someone to really transform procurement in the university. I need more of a strategy-minded individual to work with the unit. And hey, why don't you do that? Literally, like that's kind of how the conversation went. Like, why wouldn't you do that for me? Do you want to do that? And I kind of was like, oh, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about procurement. I couldn't possibly do this. And he said, I think you could probably learn it. You're a smart person and you've been here a while. You know how things work and you just implemented this whole system. So I wouldn't say that you know nothing about procurement, but I'm one of those people that probably suffers from imposter syndrome quite a bit, where I feel like, oh, I'm a fraud and I don't know anything. It's a common thing, right? Especially with PhD students also, which is right, my academic career, where we're always like, oh yeah, no, I couldn't possibly, I'm not good enough for that. So we all suffer a little bit of that. And he was really reassuring and had a lot of confidence in me. And so I made the leap. And at the time, procurement in our institution was not a part of financial services. So I actually said goodbye to my family in financial services and went over to a different unit. But that's how I landed in procurement. And then I landed in this, I'll just transition into OUPPMA discussion. I landed in my very first business meeting with all the other procurement leaders at the Ontario institutions, the Ontario universities. Again, feeling like I'm an imposter, right? Sitting in the room with all these people who have been in the procurement world for so long. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know what they're talking about. What are all these things they're talking about? And that was 6 years ago now, I think. It was in 2015, maybe sometime around there. And such an amazing group of individuals and so welcoming. And they brought me in and they said, don't worry, we'll help you. We'll coach you through this. It's okay. And a few people in particular were like, no, you're smart, you're capable, you have all this history, you know what you're talking about. And they really supported me. And then a year later, they supported me right into becoming the vice president of the association. So it was a twisting, turning journey. And lots happened before in the financial world that we won't go into here. But all roads, I'm not going to, say the cliche, like all roads pointed me here or whatever, but it really was a twisting path that got me where I am. And again, it's mostly due to the people around me that have had confidence in me and have supported me and have, seen what I can bring to the table, basically. So it's been a journey for sure. And the journey continues. It doesn't, nothing in my world, and you can probably tell from the introduction in my bio, is that I never really sit still either. I continue to change and adapt and learn. Learning is a big part of my life. And so every day is a different day. So whatever it looked like, I thought I was getting myself into 6 years ago, it continues to change. So
yeah, what's next? Yeah. Like procurement queen of the country, the world, the universe.
No.
That's really
that's
great.
Somebody else's job. I'm just kidding.
Unless we encourage you, because as I got from your story, you had a lot of supportive people that got you to where you are as well. I mean, obviously you're very capable, but it is really nice to have the support network, because I think it's very true for many jobs, all our jobs right now, just like living life to be like, the imposter syndrome thing is very real, to be like, oh my God, I don't think I actually know what you think I know, but I'm going to try. Right?
It's true. It's very real. And I mean, everything of how I described it, I've also had people, tell me along the way, like, don't underestimate yourself, right? And as you grow and mature, I mean, as you can tell from my history, like I started at Carleton, of course, like any person leaving high school, right? And I've been there ever since. And you definitely, obviously, grow and mature on your journey. And it sometimes takes you a while to value yourself, what you bring to the table, and start advocating for yourself and putting yourself in those kinds of positions. So I've always been someone who doesn't shy away from challenges or opportunities. And I don't always need someone to tell me, hey, maybe you should go do that. But you can't underestimate the support of your colleagues and people in more authoritative positions that really encourage you. It goes such a long way.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you use the lessons of how people supported you, and now you pay that forward to others in their career growth. And
absolutely.
Well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about this idea of strategic transformation. You brought this up more than once now. I'd love to hear your definition on what this means.
Oh, when you told me like 20 minutes ago you were going to ask me that question, and how do I define strategic transformation.
Well, Sandra, to be fair, I also asked you this question 6 months and 20 years ago as well.
Sure. And the question is, did I stop and think about it? No. And it's probably something I take for granted. So I think it's a really good point that you ask me that, right? Because I think I do take it for granted. And strategy and strategic transformation and just change management in general are difficult concepts for many people to understand. And frankly, the bottom line, we all live through it every day and you may not even realize it, right? But a strategic transformation or a strategic business transformation, whatever name you want to put on it, is really any fundamental shift in your direction or model or operations. Again, you could fill in the blank there, right? That change the course of your direction, right, into the future. And it kind of sets a new vision for what your purpose is. It may not be a complete altering of that. That's usually like a radical tear down and build back up. But strategic shift is aligning yourself into a different direction and then trying to, rally all of those resources around it to support that new vision. So it's really about painting a new vision. What are we here for? What do we do? What do we stand for? What's the point?
So,
what is the point?
Yeah,
and now we've just diverged into what's the meaning of life, and I'm not going to go down that road. But
are you sure? Because I'd like to talk about that a little. No, I'm just kidding.
Isn't the answer 43? I think there's already an answer for that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. With strategic transformation, I guess in the realm of procurement, I suppose it's looking at what is working with procurement and your processes right now within your organization, and what can you do to kind of move the needle to something that's more efficient, turns the machine into a more smoother running, get those gears turning better. So with yourself getting involved, because you said before that you got kind of hired into your role to be the strategic transformer. How did you identify with your organization to be like, hey, we should start moving this way and this is how I'm going to do it?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to, and many of my peers resonate with this too, where procurement, and so procurement is the term that we all kind of navigate towards now, but for many years it was purchasing. It was a purchasing function, right? And so certainly in my organization, we had purchasing services and we had buyers that were just buying stuff, purchasing goods, and it was very, commodity driven. And that's where a lot of us, I think, started. And then over the years, it transformed into this idea of procurement, right? And procurement is the broader skill set and activities that go along with acquisitions and whatever that looks like. And it's a more encompassing end-to-end portfolio, if you will, right? So, in my own organization and many organizations, purchasing is really it's a transactional activity. I need a million pencils. I'm going to go and buy a million pencils and, or you say, widgets, whatever you want to call it. And it's very price-based. What's the discount? It's all cost-driven. Where as you start moving towards more procurement, you get into the more value-based activities that surround that purchasing activity. So, in my organization, yes, I was kind of hired in to do that because the landscape was changing and has changed significantly over these last few years. And in universities, are we buying stuff? Yes, we're buying we buy a lot of things, but the focus needed to shift to be more on those bigger, impactful purchases. There's still ultimately purchases, but how do those turn into relationships and partnerships? How do those support the reputation and mission of your organization? How do those activities impact your community and the economy? You start factoring in all of these other pieces where it's not just about getting the best price on something. Yes, we want to save our organization's money. That's true. But sometimes it's not always just about saving money, right? Because there are so many other considerations to think about: sustainability, accessibility, social impact, all of these bigger topics that when you're buying a pencil, you're not necessarily thinking about those things. So shifting purchasing to procurement is starting to look at the broader implications of the purchases that you make. And purchases range, right? From, again, those pencils, those are just things we need, all the way to huge computing systems, ERPs, we've technical services, ranging into professional services for a variety of engagements, building a building, like all of these things, everything we do that has, for the most part, that has a price tag associated with it, has that impact for your organization, for your local economy, for even, provincially, nationally, however you want to look at it. There are bigger implications than looking at it as just a transaction and I'm putting in a purchase order and away we go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I guess like with strategic transformation, you're kind of always, it's like a moving target in a way that like, yes, you're looking at how things are and you're going to start refining your processes, your procurement processes. But by the time you actually reach your goal, things have changed again. And then you got to reevaluate again. And yeah, like you're right. Procurement has changed so much. Even in the last 2 years that I've worked and even discovered what even procurement is, it's changed a whole lot. But there's no way that we can just be like, we did it. Everything has transformed the way we wanted it to be. No more strategy involved.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. It's an evolving playing field, but a good strategist, right, is always got their eye on the long term and is able to piece together the nuts and bolts of today, like the operations, and kind of maneuver them so that they're always trying to realign with what that future is going to look like. Right. And the future is actually unknown. So you need to also make sure you have some flexibility built in and resilience and that you're nimble in your approach. And so your vision might be a little fuzzy and intentionally so, right? Because we are talking about a future state, right? That is never quite certain, but you need that purpose, right? As to why you're doing what you're doing and where are you headed? And then you can adapt accordingly. So it's really about bringing everything together and, being able to visualize what that future will look like and how do you get there? And yes, constantly changing and fits right in, yes, with our current landscape of today, which changes, day by day.
Oh, absolutely.
Often, from 11:59 one night to 12 a.m. the next day, everything changes. So,
yeah, very true. Yeah, totally. I want to shift gears a little bit into when I transparently also worked at the University of Carleton for quite a number of years, actually. Sandra and I never met until recently. Different worlds look like. But when I worked there, I was surprised because there is 21 universities in Ontario. Is that still the number, 21? Anyways.
It's 20, but there are different affiliated organizations. Anyways,
right.
I go with 20.
Right. Okay. Let's say 20.
Depends on how you count them and who you're counting them for. But yeah.
And I was surprised that I always thought it was like a competition-based thing, that it's like, okay, this Carleton University versus University of Ottawa versus University of Waterloo versus Guelph. These are all Ontario universities for people at home who don't know. And it was one of those things that I quickly discovered that the relationship between other universities was not like that. It is very much a collaborative effort across universities. The term that was thrown around when I was there was this co-opetition, where it's like, we're working together. Yeah, there's some friendly competition, but it's never like, put this school down to lift yours up or anything like that. It's more like, hey, I learned something, you can learn from it too, and we'll duke it out together. I'm using air quotes here, but only in the spirit of raising the bar for both of us, right? For everyone involved. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, like, you collaborate with other universities. What can we learn from this approach of collaboration?
I think, the way you just described it is a great way to describe it, because we all do share fundamental core mission, right? Which is providing education to our country, the world. And so we all share that same mission. We go about that mission in slightly different ways. And there is competition, sure. Like, how dare you raise the name of the university down the canal that shall not be named. But but also we are peers when it comes to how we deliver upon our services. And so, I joke about that, and I have great friends at Ottawa, and we all work collaboratively together, and particularly in those functions where we're trying to serve that mission of the university. So procurement is one, yes, legislated, right? We work in the public procurement sector, so in the broader public procurement sector. So therefore, we have certain things that we need to do and follow, and it's our job to make sure that our institutions don't get into any hot water in that realm, and that our practices are fair and open and transparent, and that we uphold the spirit of procurement in the sector, and we follow a code of ethics, all those great things. And in that respect, we all share the same mission and mandate and can help one another to do that. And the way you describe it too is that win-win situation. Yes, we are competitive when it comes to our student population and growth and that sort of thing. But to get us there, there's so much that we can learn from one another. And also, and I think this is the big topic of the day, right, is that we're also notoriously lean on our resources. And so my team is a small but mighty team, and they're great people, but we can only do so much, right? And so leaning on each other to help deliver our services, especially in a landscape that's changing all the time, you can't have your eye on absolutely everything. So having a group of people that kind of have your back in a way, that are all looking in different directions. We all see different things, and we can bring that back together and share it and learn from one another. And also try to coordinate our efforts so that we are coming together and going in a direction that helps us all, rather than a splinter direction that might be confusing, to the market, to our clients. So it really is the spirit of competition. Like, you could have a win-lose situation or a win-win situation, and every combination therein. But the win-win is really looking for how we can all benefit from working together. And if you truly collaborate, that is possible, right? So yeah, we're competitive to a certain extent, but when it comes to procurement, which is a profession, we're all doing the same thing, and we may do it slightly differently for our own institution because of the strategic direction of each of our institutions, but we have a common knowledge base and a common set of practices that it only helps us all if we explore it all together.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you brought it back to strategic transformation, our topic of today. But but what I wanted to ask you too is on top of that, so with universities, or at least from my knowledge, the Ontario universities who work really close together, I've talked to a lot of organizations in the past in public procurement in Canada and the States where they do work together. Do you think it's always possible to be able to collaborate with other organizations? Or is there just some cases where it's just like, no, we can't, we have to cut it off here? Because I'm trying to think, I don't have any specific ones in mind, but I'm trying to think of a situation where like we have an organization that you're not allowed to collaborate whatsoever on any procurement. You're shut off from the world. But I guess in public procurement, it feels like there should be some level of collaboration, no matter if it's in the education industry or not.
Yeah. No, and maybe I'm a bit of a naive optimist sometimes in that, I think there's always an opportunity to collaborate because, again, especially in the world we live in now, if everyone can win, shouldn't that be what we're striving for? But that's of course like that's the pie in the sky kind of idealist vision. So there is certainly, I think, a difference between public and private procurement. But even in the private sector, I think we see it, more and more, this cross-organization collaboration. But there are still marked differences. And if you're truly getting into nitty-gritty of competition and competitive advantage, then sure, there's probably times where you're not looking to really collaborate. But collaboration comes in a variety of forms also. So I think we all, in some respect, collaborate in one form or another in every aspect of our lives, unless you really have closed yourself off to that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think, again, I'm sure there's a cliche in here somewhere, but there's, we're stronger together. We can do more together. And if we all, orient ourselves towards common goals, doesn't mean that we need to execute everything the same way. And we may each take different benefits out of whatever initiative we're trying to do. But there's the cliche, right? There's the strength in numbers. It really does make anything you do more powerful. And if we're talking about areas where we're looking to have a bigger impact, then collaboration, you can't grow exponentially on your own. You need fuel for that. And the fuel comes from others. It really does. So maybe a little bit of an idealist in that respect.
I think I'm the same, where it's just, it's from my Disney mindset or Pixar mindset, where I'm like, can we all be friends? Can we just all work together for the benefit of the world? Which I know, we all want, but I'm not sure if it's always possible. But I think you're right when it comes to I feel like anyways, that there has to be even the smallest bit of collaboration that is possible, and especially in the realm of public procurement. I think private's a little bit different in that regard. But it's not saying that you have to share all of your knowledge to everyone. But when you say that you don't want to stretch your team too thin, because, they have other things to do too. Maybe another organization has something that you can learn from and that you can pass to them as well, and then see if it works for you. And as long as it fits your strategic transformation vision, then you all win, because you ultimately save time, right? And time is money.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's right. And it does kind of ultimately come back to money. Who are we kidding? But yeah, you're absolutely right. That is, the primary goal. And I think we're going to segue into that, right? But that is why, we try to bring all of our procurement people together in the university sector and the college sector as well, to learn together and learn from each other, more importantly, and lean on those people that may have figured things out a little bit better in certain things than what you have or what you have time to do, right? So that's really where us as a collective can make great strides, is if we say, hey, you do that really well and I don't really, or I don't have time, or I don't have the resources. What can I learn from you to kind of propel me along that path with the current set of resources that I have? And that's fundamentally, I think, the challenge that we all have right now, is how do you do more with less and without any expectation of getting more to do that? How do you continue? We can't just, in my mind, you can't just sit still, right? Again, I think I already said that. I don't sit still. Why should anybody else sit still?
Yeah. All right. Let's transition. And I know, wow, we've been talking for a little while now, and we haven't even got to the big part.
Gab.
We can gab. If there's one thing I know Sandra and I can do, it's gab for a long time.
We can.
Yeah. So we don't have to dwell on any one of these topics for too long, but I really want to just talk a little bit more about OUPPMA some more. And again, the full translation is Ontario University Professional Procurement Management Association. That's what the full title.
Perfect. You got it.
I nailed it this time.
It is long, but yes, you got it.
So I'm going to just quickly list off the pillars of OUPPMA. And if you want to just chime in and just, expand on that a little bit more, I'd be very curious and happy to hear about that some more. So the pillars of OUPPMA is all in the name of building and enhancing the profession. And here they are. So supporting members through advocacy and leadership, ensuring professional accountability is demonstrated through the work we do, promote collaborative strategic sourcing opportunities to leverage spend across the higher education, public and broader public sectors, provide professional development and learning opportunities in support of strategic procurement transformation. There's that word again. Advise the Council of Ontario Universities, the Council of Senior Administrative Officers, the Canadian Association of University Business Officers, and any other public sector procurement entity on procurement-related matters as appropriate, and provide reports when required.
Mm-hmm. Bit of a mouthful, and anyone who knows universities, we do love our acronyms. So
yeah, we have COW, CASAO, and Cowbow. I'm sure there's better ways to pronounce all of those.
That was funny, and I'm going to play back that piece of the recording to my peers. Great job. Yeah, the letters don't always come together in a friendly way, right? Anyhow, but no, those are the 5 pillars of our association. And again, in this idea of strategic transformation, we kind of reinvigorated our constitution and our pillars, I think it was last year actually, which was a significant effort to get all of the universities to agree to, okay, it's at the time, it's 2021. We're in the middle of a pandemic. What is our purpose here, and what are we trying to be? What are we to people, and what should we be to people, and what do we need to be for our institutions? And so those 5 pillars are what we as a collective agreed was most important in terms of our vision for the future. So supporting members through advocacy and leadership. So that speaks to, what I was talking about earlier, in that We're all lean. We all have different mandates and different strategies in our organizations. We all have different experiences and skill sets, but there are these bigger impact topics out there and things that are constantly happening in the landscape. And so how do we support each other through those things? How do we help each other become the foundations for institutions when it comes to procurement? How do we, so I'll use the topic, say, of sustainable procurement. Huge topic right now, obviously, climate change. Not every institution might have their eye set on how procurement specifically can help in this area, right? And again, because we're all different sizes, we all have different things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, but it is a topic that impacts all of us. And so how do we as a collective advocate for moving the needle on sustainable procurement practices? Again, this is just one example, but how do we do that? And how do we support our members to lead in the area also? So it's a pretty powerful pillar in that and that's the reason why it's sort of positioned as number one, is that as members of the association, yes, we have our jobs to do, but we also need to focus on collectively standing each other up and advocating for the things that we should be advocating for and building leadership capacity across the sector. So that's really what that first pillar is. And it really speaks to the whole transformation in and of itself. So how do we go from being that back office purchasing function that people remember us as to being procurement professionals that understand what we do can make an impact and can tie to our institutional strategies and to the provincial goals and objectives as well? And how can we help each other meet all of those challenges head on? Then the rest of them kind of fall from that main pillar, right? Yes, we're all professionals. We need to be accountable for what we do. And so that's, to not forget that is what we are. We are professional. And then that third bullet is about promoting collaborative sourcing, right? So fundamentally, we are obviously procurement people. We are here to buy and acquire goods and services, but how do we do that together? So that's a huge movement. And the association, OUPPMA, we were founded in 1965. We have a long history of collaboration. The whole reason the association came about in the first place was because a number of like-minded peers back then saw the opportunity of what they could do if they all coordinated their efforts together. So really the association was founded on collaboration and collaborative sourcing. And so that pillar is still fundamental in why we exist. And it's become a much bigger topic over the last few years as well, particularly as the province is looking to, centralize procurement in some form or fashion. And then again, as I've said, helping each other and pushing each other to learn and grow, which is why professional development and training is a large part of what our association does in support of strategic procurement. Yes. And that is because, again, our landscape is changing constantly. But it's a big area, procurement. And as professionals, and it's not just about professional technical knowledge either, what we're talking about here, right? It's about, what are those skills and pieces of knowledge that would enhance your ability to be an advocate, be a leader, be a collaborator, and of course, be a negotiator also, right? Because that is part of our profession as well. So it's not just professional development isn't just about, enhancing the skills you use every day, but it's about creating awareness and knowledge and broader skills that go towards being an advocate and a leader in the sector. And then, yes, that acronym full last pillar really is to understand that we are part of the fabric of the broader public sector procurement and in the university sector. And we do have a role to play when our senior officers and senior executive do have questions and concerns, or as, government brings different legislation forward or is thinking about different things, then, we're there to act as advisors. Ultimately, whatever decisions are made might land back in our court to execute on in the first place. So it's important for us to, be accessible and available to provide advice to our leaders and help them make informed decisions as to whatever course of action they're going to take. So, and that takes a form in a variety of different associations and executive tables, but we want to make sure people are aware that we're here for that purpose also, that it's not just about each other and ourselves and what we do in our procurement little bubbles. It is about the broader mission of the broader public sector and higher education.
Thank you for going through all of that too, because even though this is all, the pillars of OUPPMA, I think there's a lot that people can take away for their own organization. Of course, there's like stuff that's very specific to education, very specific to Ontario universities. But when it boils down to it, I mean, we have advocacy, we have leadership, we have accountability, we have accessibility, we have professional development. These are all things that can go outside of just education itself. So it's really cool to see it spelt out.
Sure, it could be a little bit of a template for other associations, but it's true. These are, fundamentals of any collaborative network of like-minded individuals. Really, that's likely the reason why you get together, whether you spell it out or not. The reason why you do band together and try to coordinate your efforts or learn from each other are for all of those reasons. And that act itself brings about strategic transformation. Just again,
there's
whether you know it or not,
again.
That happens. Yeah.
Love it.
Can't help it. How did we get on this topic at all?
Before we end the show, I mean, of course we can gab forever, but we eventually do have to end the show. I'd like to hear from you. What is the number one piece of advice you give to people starting their career in public procurement? Yeah,
and as we were joking about before, it's always the tough question, and there's a strategy involved in asking that at the end too. But my one piece of advice, and I don't think it's not specific to public procurement or procurement in general. I think it's really about growing yourself in any career, is about finding the people that you can learn from and leaning on them, not too much, but leaning on them where you can, and at the same time, listen to those that do support you, and hopefully you can find that support network. So that is what OUPPMA is to me. It is a wonderful group of people that I can lean on if I need to. They're there. I can call them. They collectively and individually, can provide advice and counsel. And they're also a group of people who, will offer that up and say, take what you will of that, Sandy, but here's my 2 cents, and here's what I think might be helpful. And then at the same time, they ask the same of me. So it's that give and take relationship. And so again, whether you're going into procurement or not, finding those people and that group of people that you can trust and work with and, share a little bit of similar vision and goals is really what it's all about. It's kind of like finding your home, right?
Finding your people, finding your found family, that kind of stuff.
That's right.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for talking to me today, Sandra. This has just been such a lovely conversation and so much fun. I hope to see you again, maybe in 30 years this time. We'll see how long it takes.
I hope not. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for this and for being persistent, because yes, it was a challenge, but I'm sure we'll chat soon.
I'm sure we will. And this was so worth it. And I for sure know that people at home got something out of this. So thanks again for listening to another episode of Inside Public Procurement. We'll see you guys next time.
Procurement professionals like you are the lifeblood of public sector organizations, dedicated not only to supporting your agency, but the constituents you serve. That's why we've created the Inside Public Procurement podcast here at Bonfire, a unique place where you can share stories and discuss the topics that matter to public procurement pros. From digitization and the future of public procurement to ensuring a fair and transparent process, we're all about finding new strategies to help your agency succeed. Join us at gobonfire.com to learn more. You've been listening to Inside Public Procurement by Bonfire. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you have an idea for an episode or want to come on as a guest, email us at hello@gobonfire.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.